when it comes to our barriers to entry. All what you need is like a telephone, like a smartphone, like an iPhone or something with the internet and a camera. If you have a laptop or computer, all you need is a camera and internet and microphone built into it. That's it.
Welcome to the MedTech 101 podcast. And today I'm quite excited about this because I've always been a huge proponent of telemedicine in any form in terms of reaching your doctor from the luxury of your phone or your devices at home. It makes life so much easier. And I think all of us had a better appreciation of this since COVID. So today I'm joined by like an exciting CEO. Like his story is actually quite interesting, and it's not the usual path for someone to go from med school to like starting your own company, like a tech company essentially. Today I'm joined with Ashok Gupta, who is like the CEO of and co-founder as well of TheraNow, which is an exciting company which we're going to be talking about. So without any delays, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you, Rodney. Thanks for having me here this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Like, I know you're based in the U.S. in Texas, and I'm out here in Munich, so there's a bit of a time difference, but it's good. Like, the summer is coming, and it's quite sunny now, so I'm quite happy to have you on the podcast today. But just to get started, really, for the people wondering about yourself, like who you are, like how like your path to where you are today, what could you tell us, from your days in medical school to Terra now?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's an interesting journey over the last few decades. Actually, we have taken over. I want to actually, whenever I talk about my journey, especially around there now, I always actually talk about the day when me and my wife, she's also a doctor of physical therapy, same thing like me. And we're sitting and we always have talked about like how access in the healthcare is a problem, not only in like a developing countries, even in developed countries like United States of America. So we were sitting here in my living room, watching TV with my wife, and we see a commercial for BetterHelp, like a mental health type of a product, and all telehealth. And we both are looking at each other, and we're like, why can't this be physical therapy too? And the word physical itself was the biggest barrier to even think about telehealth. And then we started like both of us had like almost 10 years of experience at this time, so we knew most of the time when we treat patients, unlike massage therapy where you just go lay down and then somebody passively is doing it, that means it can't be definitely done telehealth. Physical therapy is an active performance, where the patient himself is about performing activities and exercises in a therapeutic environment under the direction and supervision of a physical therapist. And like, let me recap how much of my session and how many times in my session I really touched the patient. And we were surprised that our analysis revealed only 10 to 20% of the time we are physically touching a patient. Uh, and 80% of our diagnoses, we were able to actually start thinking about there are ways we can easily modify our treatment plan and then be able to do tele. And that was the day TheraNow was born. And then slowly, and obviously being a clinicians at heart, not having a prior experience of building a tech company, it was a longer journey than usual tech entrepreneurs would take. But we got a lot of no's, no's for funding, no for nope. We as a client, we don't want to be the one to try it. We had our fair share of multiple pivots. We wanted to be an Uber of telehealth physical therapy. Obviously, that was the failed idea. And then we tried many other things. And to a blessing in a disguise, actually, what happened is when the COVID came, everyone recognized the power and strength of telehealth and telemedicine. And some of the rules changed as well during that time. And initially, we all thought that was going to be temporary, but that gave a window for companies like mine to showcase like how powerful and effective our treatment methodologies are. And then so we took the best advantage of it, showed how important the outcomes are, and that day and then 6 years later we still have every single flexibility that came out of that COVID environment. And we're just thriving. We're helping millions and millions of people now via the virtual healthcare, and looking forward to keep doing more.
Well, that's really good, and there's nothing to do. Well, there's nothing more special to do than to form like some sort of like synergy, like like with your partner or your wife in this case. Where you guys basically had like a epiphany at the same time to start this, and you it made you realize how things could be built from there. So yeah, I mean that's really exciting to hear that, and but one thing you mentioned really that it kind of touched me, or it made me actually quite curious in terms of the amount of times you actually like touch, like, or the doctors touch a patient when you go to their offices is very rare, or it's not doesn't even really happen that much, which especially when you're doing physio, as you say, it only happens 10% of the time, but you never really realize it because you're in the doctor's office. But like with that, it actually means there's a huge potential to then make it, something that can be delivered virtually as well. So and just before we go on, like what kind of devices can people use this? Because I'm sure everyone who had this, the first question they have is, can they do this on their phone? Can they do this from their laptop, an iPad, etc.? What softwares, things like that, do would someone need to be able to utilize this?
Right. No, absolutely. So, the way I would explain this is, it's very low patient weight, when it comes to our barriers to entry. All what you need is like a telephone, like a smartphone, like an iPhone or something with the internet and a camera. If you have a laptop or a computer, all you need is a camera and internet and microphone built into it. That's it. We intentionally learned from the historical events. A lot of telemedicine or out of the clinic medicine was developed around hardware. You would remember those days, like a sensor would be put on you, or you would need a special device. And then that's how anything non conventional was being done. And we realized, like, if we got that route, what's problem going to happen is, one, logistically it'll be very difficult to scale. Second, the cost of that hardware will be inbuilt into the service delivery itself. And then third, a lot of people will be, somehow it won't be good for them because they are not able to adapt to that technology. It's the barrier to entry will be even higher. So considering all that, what we always felt is the burden of technology should not be on the patient. It should be on someone who we can train, and which is the clinician. So now we have a large network of like around 350 plus therapists that work on a daily basis for us. And we work with the large population of United States of America to provide the virtual care via us. So when you log on, we know like that 10 to 20% that we were talking about, like touch and feel, and then be able to how much your body is moving, and then be able to actually like create a custom care plan for you. We can't just discount that. It is very valuable. So what we have to do is use technology to fill that gap. So we have to create a modified version. So that's why I always say, if you think getting on a Teams call like this or a Zoom is telehealth, then you are absolutely wrong. You're going to fail miserably. And then you're going to say, that doesn't really work. I want to go back to what we've been doing for the last 50 years. But when you go to a specialized tool like TheraNow, what happens is like you jump on from the other side, and generally what I would be doing is like moving your shoulder to measure how much actually like range of motion you have, or how much range of motion you have the other way, right? And that's the main reason why we were touching you. That's the main reason physical contact was happening during the entire session. We're like, can we do this virtually as well? So now when you jump on a Theranos session, what happens is my clinician is able to click one button and then be able to, the AI, the computer vision AI that's built into our sessions, is able to recognize this is your shoulder, this is your elbow, and this is your wrist. And then now to the 10th of the degree precision, it's able to see how much actually motion is happening. That not only gives me objective findings of how well my treatment is progressing, but also I can document it and reverse it back and then show it to you to motivate you. See, this is what you were doing 2 weeks ago, and then now this is where you are today.
Wow, wow, and that's really fascinating, really, because and I think that answers a lot of questions that I had myself, and I'm sure a lot of people also had those same questions in terms of, okay, fine, we can do this virtually, we can integrate AI into it, which is really exciting, and I'm really happy to hear that you can actually keep database and sort of like check how you've progressed in terms of your recovery over a couple of weeks and so forth, which is actually analyzed, based on your, biometrics in terms of how your body moves and everything like that. So it's really quite exciting, and I think it's sometimes it might actually even be better than a human being, because like a doctor's not going to remember every single person who comes to the office in terms of what your range of motion was 2 weeks ago. So it's something then that can make it also easier for the doctors to do their jobs better, to see if they need to like rehabilitate you in the right form, in the best way possible. But and that's really exciting. And like the question that I have now obviously is that, like, as much as we are like sort of like integrating this technology, is it something that that doctors will basically be have been kind of recipient to, or is it something that like patients, or sort of like the people who use it have been recipient to, like in terms of like where exactly has been some of those challenges for you guys, and what you guys are working to change in the market right now as things are.
Right. No, that's a wonderful question. Actually, it's pretty loaded. So I'm gonna actually like take a small segments of it and then try to answer it. So uh, when the venue of the treatment changes, a lot of things change because now the patient is in their home environment. It's in the convenience of their home or their office or where they would want to be. As far as it's a private area, that's all what is needed. It takes away the burden of driving 30 minutes to the clinic. It's waiting there for an hour, getting the treatment, and then coming back 30 minutes, and you're back to zero where you started from, and then repeating that twice a week for a few weeks actually in order to get some outcomes. Now, what happens is when you can just like at 3 o'clock means 3 o'clock, you just pull up your device and then start your therapy. And then 3:53 means 3:53 is when you end and you don't have to drive back. Now you have more compliance towards this treatment protocol. And that's what we have seen. And then this is not my feeling. I know 5 years ago, you would have asked me, is like, does it work? I would have said, trust me, I am a clinician. I've done this for many years. It works. But today we have thousands of patients of data, and then what we did is we did a comparable studies to patients who went into the clinic and then actually got the outcome. What was their objectively identifiable outcome was, and then the same or similar subset of patients when they were done at virtual therapy, what was it? And it was actually absolutely same. And not that because we're providing exactly the same care, it's a different modality because we had to adapt to it. But there are some values, convenience. And then a lot of patients are more engaged because I'll talk about a little bit when you go to a clinic, you get treatment within the four walls of the clinic. And then generally, like you come out of it, you forget, and then you move on with your daily life. And then you go back again the second time in a week, and then that's all versus when you the treatment is happening in your home is the clinic. That means you can't escape. Your treatment is happening 24/7 all 7 days of the week. Plus the features like remote patient monitoring that is built into the technology. The barrier to technology is big when you're in the clinic, and now because the clinic is in your phone, we are able to see how well are you moving, how much during the day. We are very well integrated with Apple Health and Google Health. We are able to have Apple Watch, or any of sort of those technology. When you move, we are able to see how well are you moving. When you document that my pain has been going down, we are able to increase the quality of your exercises. We're able to give you a home program that actually we're able to monitor over the rest of the week when you're not live one-on-one with me. So that's from the perspective of the patient, that I always talk about. And I don't want to take you to the other side of it because the second part of your question was like how the clinicians actually respond to it. Are we putting a lot of burden on them, right? Okay. Uh, so clinician side, majority of the products or AI when we talk about it comes with a secondary statement. It's going to take away the jobs. It's going to replace us. And so you must have heard it, right?
Yeah, I think that's the fear for anyone dealing with AI. Everything that's linked to AI, people automatically think that their job is going to be replaced, and some of the fear is actually quite justified, because I think in the last 6 months, there's been major layoffs by tech companies, right? Like you just wake up at 6 a.m. and like 30,000 people have been fired. This week it was Oracle, but I know Amazon did something similar. So even though they say, yeah, no, guys, like this AI is here to help you, help, like, and usually it's the same workers who have worked hard to integrate that AI into the company's, like technological infrastructure. And then afterwards, then you wake up to an email saying, actually, the AI is doing a little bit better than you. Thank you for integrating it. We don't really care. You worked here for 25 years, like it's time for you to go. So I do understand where the fear is coming from, but
No, absolutely. And you're so
yeah.
well right. But there's another characteristic actually, like when we talk about healthcare, there's a difference. There's a thesis about like how can we eliminate this expensive labor or workforce and then make it inexpensive, versus the other side to it is like, okay, how can we make our outcomes better by actually making our clinicians more effective? Because healthcare versus coding is very different. Healthcare is not structured. Code, the very first thing we disrupted is a coding, because coding is like you have millions of examples, structured data set available there, and then so they were able to build a product around it. I still at heart don't believe we can replace our doctors by AI. We can replace our clinicians and nurses and physical therapists by AI in the near term. Maybe 20, 30, 50 years from today, maybe a different world we are living in. But as of today, any technology that makes our clinicians more effective is a core thesis of TheraNow. And I'm not going to say everybody has the same concept. There are a lot of companies that want to replace the conventional treatment care. And at TheraNow, the core thesis has always been, I was like, how can we make ourselves more effective and reduce the cost in the process at the same time? I'll give you an example of that. Is like when we talk about clinics, we're building an alternate of virtual care. And so someone can talk about we're replacing clinics with the virtual care. And I always talk about, no, we are not. We're creating an omni-channel experience. What an omni-channel experience looks like is you can go to the clinic for one visit. For the next visit, you can have on a virtual session, and then you can go back to the clinic because you need a very specific alignment or a specific therapeutic intervention. And then towards the end, now you're a lot better, and then you can continue virtually all over through. And that's called as an omni-channel experience. Everybody's a winner in this process. The clinics, they've survived, and then they actually work on a more acute patients, and the virtual care, which is more advanced, is able to take away the patients that really don't belong in the clinic. And then the patients also have a freedom to choose how and where they want to take the care. So when the technology is developed, the core piece of care delivery that TheraNow has is the therapist and therapist's time and therapist's knowledge that is being provided to the patient.
True, and just to just basically even ask you, like, in a simpler way, to simplify some of the things you said, is that if someone was to use TheraNow, for example, you have the freedom to use it for a certain aspect of the treatment, but you can still do clinical visits. It does not replace clinical visits entirely. If you still want to feel like, okay, at certain stages in your recovery, you want to see a physiotherapist, and so forth, and so that's what you're saying, right? So the patients and the clinicians have the choice to use it interchangeably together.
Yes, and I know your audience is like a common people like us, but I'm going to give you an example from a business perspective here. A lot of time there's a direct to consumer products, and where a consumer can walk up to a website and then actually request for it. And then we knew if we go that route, it wouldn't be most effective approach. So what we have done is we have plugged TheraNow into the large hospital systems that already have an existing physical presence of the clinics, and then we have enabled them to be virtually powered. So now, if you're consuming services in the health system that partners with TheraNow, you would be always presented with this omni-channel experience where you can have some sessions in the clinic, some sessions in the on. But and that's why it does make it a little bit like if Rodney today wants to actually like jump on theranow.com and then try to receive care, we won't be able to service because the business model is around participating with the hospital systems and working along with them.
Nice, nice. That's really fascinating. And then, obviously, the question is for people who are listening right now, perhaps who are doctors, or maybe hospital managers, guys who are in charge of bringing new systems into hospitals. If the questions regarding regulatory aspect of this, like what kind of regulatory measurements have you guys taken to make sure that, like, you're approved, you got, certified people, like, and even, for example, the algorithm that you're using and everything respects, data laws and so forth, and all the worries people have, in terms of like all the paperwork. What would you say to those people?
We take security and compliance very, very seriously at TheraNow. Even being a startup and a tech company, we decided to make sure HIPAA is basic. In the US, HIPAA is all about protecting patients' privacy and PHI. So that was like obviously a no-brainer. We had to ensure that we are to those marks. We have been audited and approved by multiple large health systems, and like health systems are very, very strict about what kind of technology they bring in. So there's no better test and testament from that like we are already working with so many large health systems, and they have gone through every single piece of evaluation that they can do on there now, from operative perspective, from technology perspective, and all the other ways. But the feather in the cap is most health systems in the United States are joint commission accredited. Also, in some of the healthcare executives might know it from the JCO. Joint Commission is one of the independent authority that actually evaluates the workings and healthcare procedures, safety, security, and all the other things in any healthcare organization. Majority hospitals, we voluntarily went to them and then said, would you like to evaluate us? And then up to that point, they had not evaluated any telehealth, 100% telehealth companies. So we became the very first company to get a joint commission accreditation for telehealth program. And it was very rigorous process. I want to say more than 2,500 pieces of document and policies and procedures that we had to provide it to them. And then even they had to adapt the way they evaluate or survey a company. They usually like walk in unannounced in a hospital. And when they walk in, if anyone who has worked in a hospital would know, is like everyone runs around, runs away, and then they all are on the best of the behavior. Here, it was like one of the longest virtual call I've ever been on in my life. It started, I think, 8 o'clock or a little bit before that in the morning, and we were on this one continuous survey call till 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. So very vigorous process, but we are proud to say that like we're joint commission accredited. So this gives a lot of confidence to our healthcare partners to uh, see that like we are set at the same standards what they are at.
True. And just a quick question as well, because I also got a few of my mates, who basically I was talking to, just before we did these interviews, who are like, physiotherapists, and in this case, like physiotherapy in the sense that people will help people, like rehabilitate after maybe a stroke, or either an injury, or even sometimes after a surgery, right? You need to just get your muscles going again. So the question they had was, like, even on your team, for example, at TheraNow, is there like even certain like virtual physiotherapists that you also hire as well, like remotely, or is everything now sort of like a database that's been set and it's just a software, or is also an element for people to actually want to join TheraNow, like, and what are the possibilities for those people, for example?
No, makes sense. So I want to clarify one thing is our treatment is you talking to a real licensed doctor of physical therapy. So that means it's always virtually. The only difference is you're not going anywhere, nobody's coming to you, you're meeting virtually, but it is always a licensed, board certified doctor of physical therapy or licensed physical therapist in your state, wherever you are. So we have 50 states in the United States. So that means if you're in Florida, you are going to have one licensed in Florida, not in Texas. That's the first part. The second thing is for the clinicians that want to. So we already have 350 clinicians under our network that are directly working with the patients that actually we get from the health systems to treat for. And anyone coming new, what we it's something like we always help our clinicians to actually transform their knowledge base, they don't need any special skills other than that they already have. But you always need a little bit training. I'll give you an example of it. Like when we go to school, we are taught physical therapy, and that is what we are delivering virtually. So I don't have to teach physical therapy to any of my new clinicians. But sometimes what happens is we are taught bedside manners. And when we go to the hospitals, we do rounds and we clinical training. Every single time, our teachers and professors are teaching us bedside manners and how to actually engage with the patient, but nobody taught us website manners. And that is very important too. Means like you see how amazing your background is, like you have a clean background, it's lighting, you hold this. This is your podcast website manners, right? You're
Mm,
coming in with, and then looking at you, I had to bring in my microphone also. It's like, okay, I have to make sure it is nice and clean, looks aesthetic, and then all good,
yep,
so that your listeners can see we are professionals doing a professional work. but
yep.
uh but uh and then the way you open it, the way you actually structure a discussion and every single thing. Um, but the clinicians that we work with in school were never taught how to do the care virtually, so we have to build, we built a lot of tools, we built educational resources, and then we have a constant support model that actually like provides our clinicians a way to improve every single day.
True, true. And for like the other listeners, perhaps who are not in the US, because like as I said earlier, like 70% of the listeners on this podcast are split between Europe and the US. Is there any hopes for those people in other countries? Like in terms of, do you guys plan to get into other countries? What are your sort of like short-term plans for people in jurisdictions maybe which you're not yet available in?
Oh no, absolutely. So, yeah, physical therapist in United States, which is exactly the same as physiotherapist in any other country. Even our neighbors here in Canada, we call the physical therapist as a physiotherapist. And where I personally got my training in India, it's a physiotherapist. So, United States is heavily regulated, not even at the federal level, even at the state level. So it does not matter where you are or where you're from, as far as you're willing to go through the process of actually like proving that your education is as good or equal to what is actually like delivered here in the United States, you can actually get the licensure here. So when we're delivering care in the US, we are required to have a US licensed physical therapist. So that is not impossible because I've done it myself. And so I highly encourage, if anyone actually has aspirations to provide care in the United States, they go through that part of the process. And once they have a license, this TheraNow is an amazing place to work at. As a company there now, we are also expanding, and as we're growing, definitely we will be very soon expanding to the other countries. And then as we expand to the other countries, we'll have to abide by the laws in that country specifically. Most of the countries require you to have a licensure in their local region, so we have to follow
It's
those.
true, and I think like medicine is quite regulated, like worldwide. So, but yeah, I mean, to ask you, I mean, because for most people hearing this right now, they're basically thinking, "Oh, I didn't know this is where we are already." So they're already kind of surprised and sort of like in a good way in terms of where the technology is, like just from a human species point of view, that this can now be done virtually. The question is, if this is the current state, or like what do you think the future has, or like what in terms of like virtual physiotherapy, like what are your thoughts on that in terms of like the current versus the future, since you're working on this day and day, and please feel free to go as science fiction as you want. It's like it's really an open-ended question, just to to poke into your brain to see where you think everything is going.
No, that's wonderful. Actually, like I want to be a little bit practical in making these assumptions, like how things are going to be. It's not going to be you're talking to a chatbot and then in chatbot actually fixed your back pain. I don't think so. It's ever going to be like that. We always, as a human, need a more comprehensive care. Specifically in our domain, we're going to have a very heavy use of artificial intelligence, which right now, when we talk about artificial intelligence, general examples are around generative AI. Generative AI is just like bunch of words thrown at you based on what's available on the internet. But specifically when you come in the physical world, beyond all the other part like physical medicine, you look at the usage of AI that we have. The highest usage of AI that we use today, no, we do use a lot of generative AI, but the highest is computer vision AI, which is not spitting out the words. It is actually recognizing where the hip is. So, and a lot of physical AI use is going to augment the need of the tomorrow's medical care. So, and that's where I can totally see companies like TheraNow that embrace old and new together at the same time, and then a generative AI and physical AI in the same sentence, are the type of companies that are going to be at the forefront of it. If you're just going to take hardware and then say, I'm going to put a sensor on your body and you'll get fixed, or if you're going to say, I'm going to actually give you a chat bot, you're going to talk to a chat bot and then you'll get better, probably that's not going to be the winners. The winners are going to be that actually have these omni-channel experience. Means I can go to the clinic, I can actually like talk to the chatbot, I can actually have a sensor on my body to actually tell the app that how well I'm doing, and at the same time I can actually jump on a call and then talk to a real human and then actually get a real care from them. Something like that would be the future of it, and we're working on pretty hard to make it possible.
Well, that's really exciting, and I know like you have a busy day, and like I promise that I'll not make it long. So I'm really happy to to have had you on the podcast today. But before I let you go, I mean, for people who want to reach out to you, like where can they find you? Are you attending any conferences? Are you like do they just email you? Do they find you on LinkedIn? Like what's your contact details?
Oh no, absolutely. I'm pretty active on all the places that you just talked about. On LinkedIn, it can be searched by Ashok Gupta for TheraNow, and then I should be the first or second the results you will find. I'm really responsive and active there. Now, please connect with me on there. You can always reach out to anybody at our company via theranow.com, TheRanow.com. Or an exciting thing happening in a couple of weeks is like I'm speaking on telehealth in operation and care delivery at one of our national conferences at Becker's Healthcare. That's one of the great panel we're going to have. So tune into that. If you're already coming at the Beckers, I would be excited to meet you there. If not, then we'll host all of that content on the multiple platforms also. Please do listen into it. That would be great.
Nice. And as usual, I'll put the guys listening this on the audio or watching on the YouTube version of this podcast episode. All the links will be below in the description. So yeah, thank you very much, Doc, and it's great work you're doing.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.